The Martian sun hung low, casting long shadows across the endless red desert. Wind swept over the dunes, carrying whispers of dust and time. In the middle of this barren land stood Dr. Elias Trent, a quiet man with sharp eyes and a tired soul. He had spent 10 years searching for proof that intelligent life once touched Mars. Now, standing before the crumbling shape buried in the sand, he finally felt the weight of discovery pressing on his chest. Before him lay a massive metal structure, half buried, covered in dust and ancient scars. Its shape was unlike anything human. The metal looked alive, smooth yet broken, shining faintly even under the red sun. The locals who guided him called it the Guardian of the Red Wastes. They refused to come closer, saying the ground still breathes. Elias knelt beside the ruins and brushed away the dust with gloved hands. Strange symbols ran along the surface, each one glowing faintly as his fingers touched them. His small drone scanned the marks, but the system failed to translate anything. Every time he tried to decode the symbols, the screen flickered, as if the machine itself was afraid to read them. He sighed, speaking softly into his recorder. Day 47. The artifact appears to be mechanical, possibly a war machine. Power signatures still faintly active. The wind howled again, echoing through the hollow structure like a voice trapped in metal. The sound made his heart skip. It almost sounded like a word. Elias, he froze. The radio was silent, the drone still hovering. Only the desert moved. He tried to laugh it off, but the voice lingered in his head. He shook his thoughts away and continued his work. By sunset, the excavation site looked like a battlefield. Tools scattered, lights flickered in the dusty air, and the shape of the Guardian became clear. It had a humanoid form, massive shoulders, curved armor, and what seemed like a head shaped with perfect symmetry. As the night fell, Elias sat beside the wreck, staring at the stars. He recorded again. There's something strange about this machine. The metal doesn't belong here. It's older than Earth's recorded history. Maybe older than Earth itself. His comm beeped. It was Lena Cross, his engineer friend back on the research base. Elias, are you still in that storm? You need to return before sunrise. The sensors picked up magnetic interference from your area. I'll be fine, he replied. Lena, this is it. This is what we've been looking for. You say that every time, she sighed. Just don't activate anything. Promise? He smiled faintly. You know me. Exactly. That's why I'm worried. The call ended, leaving him in the silence of Mars. The wind died down. Even the drone went still, as if holding its breath. Then, from inside the wreck, a faint blue light appeared. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Elias stood eyes wide as dust lifted around the glow. He took a step closer, holding his scanner. Power. Reactivation? He whispered. The scanner beeped rapidly, displaying a rising energy curve. His pulse matched the rhythm. The light grew brighter, stretching out across the alien metal like veins awakening after centuries of sleep. A soft vibration shook the ground beneath him. The machine gave a low metallic sound, like metal inhaling for the first time. Elias stumbled back, shouting into his recorder, "It's alive! The system is—" The rest of his words vanished in a surge of static. His earpiece hissed. And then, through the static came the same voice again, this time clearer, deeper. Rebuild me, and remember Earth's debt. Elias's heart stopped for a second. The voice wasn't human. It wasn't even mechanical. It sounded old, like something speaking through time itself. He looked around wildly, but there was no one, only the silent desert and the shining ruin before him. The light faded again, leaving darkness behind. The scanner shut down as if something had drained its power. For a long time, Elias just stood there, breathing hard. He felt the cold metal beneath his glove, and for a moment he swore it was warm, alive. He packed his tools slowly, trying not to think about the voice. He told himself it was the storm, or the radio glitching again. But as he turned to leave, he noticed something new on the sand. Footprints not his, not human. They were large, deep and glowing faintly blue, leading away from the ruins into the darkness beyond the dunes. Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. Mars had no life. No air, no water, no footsteps. He whispered to himself, who else is out here? The desert stayed quiet, but far in the distance, something heavy moved under the sand, like a giant awakening from a long dream. Elias didn't see it yet, but tonight he had woken something that was never meant to be disturbed, and it had just begun to remember. A soft red dawn rose over Mars, lighting the desert like fire. The storm from last night had passed, leaving the sand smooth and silent again. But Dr. Elias Trent hadn't slept. He sat beside the strange ruin, eyes fixed on the metal giant he had uncovered. The events of the night kept replaying in his mind. The glowing light, the whisper that spoke his name, the footprints that vanished into the dunes. He had checked his recorder again and again, but the last few seconds of audio were gone, erased as if the machine had wiped itself. He rubbed his face with trembling hands. "It can't be real," he muttered. But deep inside, he knew something ancient had heard him. A sound broke the silence. A small shuttle landed nearby, kicking up dust. Out stepped Lena Cross, wearing her black engineer suit and holding a scanner. She looked angry, worried, and half awake. "Elias, what the hell did you do?" she shouted over the wind. "The whole base lost power when you sent that last signal." "I didn't send anything," he said quickly. "Something activated on its own." Lena walked to the half-buried giant and froze. "By all stars. What is that?" "The Guardian," Elias whispered. "It's not dead. I think it's still alive." Lena knelt beside the wreck, scanning the metal surface. "Alive? Elias, this thing is hundreds, maybe thousands of years old. Machines don't stay alive that long." "Then explain this." He touched a faint blue line running across the Guardian's chest. It glowed at his touch, spreading like lightning through the cracks of the armor. Lena stepped back. "It's reacting to you." "I think it wants to be rebuilt," Elias said. She frowned. "Elias, listen to yourself. You want to rebuild an alien war machine. You don't even know what it does." But Elias wasn't listening anymore. He was already unpacking his tools. Something deep inside him, something beyond reason, told him this machine mattered. Hours passed. Together they worked in silence. Lena replaced burned-out conduits with new ones from her shuttle. Elias cleaned every symbol, every joint, every wire he could find. Each time they connected a power cell, the Guardian pulsed with light, as if waking piece by piece. When the sun began to fall, the desert glowed orange and gold. The Guardian stood taller now, its upper body rebuilt, its head half restored. Lena wiped sweat from her brow. "We should stop. The readings are unstable. It's drawing energy from somewhere else, not just from the power cells." Elias looked up at the giant. "It's drawing from the planet," he whispered. "It's using Mars itself as a battery." Before she could reply, the Guardian's chest opened with a hiss of steam. Inside was a glowing orb, the core. It pulsed like a living heart. Lena stepped back. "Elias, don't touch that." But he already had. The instant his fingers brushed the surface, the world exploded in light. Elias fell back as visions filled his mind. Cities floating in the stars, machines bowing before giant figures of light, and a war that burned entire worlds to ash. He heard voices, thousands of them, crying out the same name. The Guardian must never fall. He gasped for air, the visions fading. The Guardian's eyes, two blue slits, slowly opened. Lena froze. "Elias, it's awake." The machine's head turned slightly. The air around it hummed. Then a voice came, not from a speaker, not from the air, but inside their minds. "You are not ready. The true enemy still watches." The sand trembled beneath their feet. Lena grabbed Elias's arm. "What enemy? What is it talking about?" But the Guardian didn't answer. Its lights dimmed, its chest closed, and it went still again. Only one blue eye remained faintly glowing. Elias looked at Lena. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," she said softly. "And I wish I didn't." They backed away slowly. But then Lena's wrist communicator beeped loudly. She frowned and checked the screen. Earth's orbital satellites had detected massive energy bursts across Mars's surface. Multiple signals, all matching the Guardian's energy pattern. Her voice shook. "Elias, there are more of these." All over the planet. He turned back to the silent giant. Then this one isn't alone. That night, as the two set up camp beside the ruins, the stars above Mars shimmered faintly, like something huge was moving out there. Beyond the edge of the solar system, Lena sat beside the fire, staring at the Guardian's dark shape. "You think we did the right thing?" Elias didn't answer. His mind was still full of the voice, the visions, the endless war in his head. Far away, deep under the sand, something else stirred. Another machine, another Guardian, receiving the same signal. Its blue eyes opened in the dark. Mars was waking up, and soon Earth would hear it too. For the first time in years, Mars felt alive. Energy rippled beneath the surface, invisible waves moving across the planet's crust. Sensors on Earth picked up strange magnetic storms that no scientist could explain, but only two people knew what truly happened: Dr. Elias Trent and Lena Cross. Inside their desert camp, the Guardian stood motionless, towering like a giant shadow against the dim red sky. The air around it pulsed softly every few seconds, like a sleeping heartbeat. Elias sat in front of his data tablet, eyes locked on the readings. The signals from the Guardian were spreading, hundreds of identical pulses echoing from other points on Mars. "There are more of them," he whispered. Lena leaned over his shoulder. "If they all wake up, Mars will not survive," he nodded slowly. "I think it's already started." Before she could reply, the Guardian's blue eye flashed bright. The ground rumbled. Dust lifted into the air. Both of them stood back as the Guardian's chest opened again, the glowing core pulsing stronger than before. A deep voice echoed inside their minds, clear and commanding. Transmission sequence initiated. "Target the architect," Elias shouted. "Stop! You don't know what you're calling." But the Guardian didn't stop. A beam of light shot from its chest straight into the sky. A perfect column of blue energy cutting through Mars's thin atmosphere. Lena shielded her face. "Elias, what's it doing?" He watched in disbelief as the beam spread into a web of glowing light across the heavens. Then just as suddenly it stopped, silence, and then the radio crackled. "Earth's orbital control weak and broken. Elias, this is Space Command. What have you done?" Our satellites, their static swallowed the rest of the message. Lena checked the comms. "We lost connection to Earth." Elias's hands trembled. It wasn't just a signal, it was a call. "Call to who?" Lena asked. He stared at the dark sky above. "Not who. What?" Hours later, as they repaired their damaged equipment, the radio came alive again. Faint, distant voices from Earth. "Massive objects detected beyond Jupiter's orbit. Hundreds of unknown ships, matching no known design." Lena's face went pale.
"Ships?"
Elias nodded. It heard the call. They ran outside. The night sky over Mars was dark, but far above, Elias could see faint white trails, movements in the stars. They weren't meteors. They were coming this way. Lena gripped his arm. "You need to turn this thing off now." He looked up at the Guardian, which stood quietly again, blue light fading. It sent the message for a reason. "Elias, that reason might be to kill us," she snapped. He didn't answer. Instead, he placed his hand on the Guardian's cold armor. "Tell me," he said softly, "who did you call?" The Guardian's eye lit again. "The architect must know the experiment survived," Elias frowned. "Experiment? What experiment?" "Humanity," the voice replied. Lena gasped. "That's impossible." But Elias knew it wasn't lying. The vision he had seen, those cities in the stars, those beings of light, it all made sense now. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe. Maybe it never had been. The Guardian continued speaking, its voice deeper, almost sorrowful. "Earth was seeded, shaped, tested. You were to remain silent until the war ended. But you rebuilt me. You broke the seal." Elias's breath caught. "The seal?" "The barrier between what was and what will return." A sudden boom shook the ground. They both stumbled as a shockwave hit the camp. In the sky, a massive object burned through the atmosphere, crashing into the desert far away. The horizon flashed white for a moment, then dark smoke rose in the distance. Lena stared in horror. Something just landed. Elias looked at the Guardian. Was that them? The voice answered quietly. Not them. It. The first of the architects. The Guardian's eyes dimmed again, but not before one final sentence echoed in Elias's head. Prepare. The Devourers will follow. That night, Mars no longer felt like a quiet, dead world. The air carried a strange hum, as if the planet itself had started to breathe again. From orbit, cameras captured glowing lines spreading across the surface, old alien symbols reawakening after centuries. In a command room back on Earth, generals watched the readings rise and fall. One of them whispered, "We've woken something we don't understand." And far beyond Jupiter, in the cold dark of space, hundreds of shapes moved slowly toward the inner system. They were silent, patient, ancient, and they had finally heard the call. Elias didn't know it yet, but the true story was only beginning. The Guardian's mission wasn't protection. It was a message, and that message had just been delivered. The next morning, a red dust storm swept across the desert, turning the sky into a wall of fire. Elias and Lena took shelter inside their small base, listening to the wind roar against the metal walls. Outside, the Guardian stood still, half buried again, its blue lights blinking softly under layers of dust. The night before still haunted them. The beam of light, the crash far away, and that one terrible truth: humanity was the experiment. Lena stared at the computer screen filled with alien symbols. "I decoded part of the Guardian's memory," she said quietly. "There's a hidden file buried inside its system. The name reads Project Edenfall." Elias turned from the window. "What's inside?" She hesitated. "It's locked with something like DNA encryption. It needs your genetic code to open." "My DNA?" he said in shock. "Why mine?" Lena shrugged. "Maybe it recognized you. Maybe you were chosen." He walked toward the Guardian, brushing the dust from its surface. "Chosen by what?" The machine didn't answer, but its faint hum grew louder, like a heartbeat that had just heard its own name. They worked for hours, the storm raging outside. Lena linked the Guardian's main core to her tablet, while Elias tried to trace the encrypted pathways. The alien code moved like a living thing, changing symbols, hiding messages, testing them. Finally, the screen flickered. The Guardian's eye glowed bright blue, and a deep voice filled the room. "Access granted. Welcome, Elias Trent. Project Edenfall now revealed." The tablet flashed images, Earth seen from space, but older, greener, untouched by human hands. Then came a strange city of light, floating in the clouds. Tall beings, made of energy and armor, stood over sleeping humans inside crystal chambers. Lena's voice trembled. They didn't just find us. They made us." Elias couldn't breathe. The Guardian spoke again, calm but heavy. "Humanity was designed by the architects to rebuild what was lost after the Great War. You were meant to rise, learn, and remember." He whispered. "Remember what?" "That peace is only borrowed. The Devourers always return." The words chilled him. "So the Guardian wasn't a protector?" "No," said the voice. "I was the Watcher. My duty was to keep the experiment contained until the architect returned." Lena's eyes widened. "Contained? You mean humanity was never supposed to leave Earth?" The Guardian's voice deepened. "Your species was not ready for the stars. The seal kept you hidden from the Devourers. Now you have broken it." Elias stepped back, shaking his head. "You're saying this is our fault? That we caused them to come here?" "Cause and fault are human words," the Guardian replied. "I obey my command. The seal is broken. The architects are coming to judge their creation." Lena slammed her fist on the table. "No, we can stop this. If we destroy the core, maybe the signal..." Before she could finish, alarms blared across the camp. The screens flashed red, multiple objects descending fast. Elias looked at the radar. "They're landing all around the planet." He ran outside, fighting the storm. Through the dust, he saw bright flashes in the sky, ships cutting through the atmosphere, glowing like falling stars. The ground trembled beneath his boots. One of the ships crashed miles away, sending a shockwave that cracked the sand. Elias fell to his knees. Lena shouted over the wind, "Elias, we need to leave." But he didn't move. He stared at the Guardian, which now stood fully awake, blue light flooding from every joint. "You cannot run," it said. "It has begun." "What has begun?" Elias yelled. "The recall. All Guardians across Mars are reactivating," Lena's voice broke. "If these things all wake up, they could destroy everything." The Guardian turned its gaze to her, its voice cold. "Destruction or protection, that depends on him." Elias looked up. "On me. Why me?" "Because you carry the mark." The architects designed a link, human and Guardian, bound through the same code. "You are the key, Elias Trent." He stared in disbelief. "I'm just a scientist." "Nud," it said softly. "You are the echo of our design." The wind outside grew stronger. Dust swirled around the Guardian as it raised one massive arm toward the sky. A beam of light shot upward again, but this time smaller, focused. The air filled with a strange vibration, like a song from another world. Elias fell back, clutching his ears. "What are you doing?" "Contacting the others," it replied. "The network must remember its purpose." The light faded. The Guardian went still again, its eyes dimming to a faint glow. Lena grabbed Elias's shoulder. "We need to shut it down before it does something worse." He nodded weakly, still staring at the alien machine. "I'll try." He stepped closer, hands shaking, opening a small panel on the Guardian's chest. Inside, he saw thousands of symbols glowing in patterns, and in the center one human code string. His DNA. For a moment he understood. The Guardian wasn't using him. It was connected to him. He whispered, "We're not the experiment anymore. We're part of the machine." The Guardian's eye flickered one last time. "Now you understand, Elias Trent. The architects are not your gods. They are your makers, and they are coming home." Thunder rolled across the desert, not from the sky, but from deep underground. Something enormous was waking beneath Mars's surface. The storm had passed, leaving a strange calm over the Martian desert. The Guardian stood silent once again, but the ground around it vibrated with a low hum, like the heartbeat of something vast beneath the surface. Inside the small research base, Elias Trent sat motionless, staring at the glowing core inside the Guardian's chest. Everywhere he looked, the screens, the lights, even the air, seemed to pulse with the same rhythm. Lena Cross paced behind him, her hands shaking. "Elias, we have to destroy it," she said. "If the others wake up, Mars will collapse. We saw what it did. Those ships, the signal, the sky lighting up." "I can't," he said quietly. "It's connected to me now. I can feel it." Lena turned to him. "You're talking like it's alive." He looked at her with tired eyes. "It is alive, and it remembers everything," she frowned. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out and touched the Guardian's core. The blue light expanded, wrapping around his arm, spreading across his body like liquid fire. Lena shouted his name, but the light swallowed him whole. In an instant, Elias was gone. He opened his eyes and found himself standing in an endless space filled with floating fragments of light. Around him hung broken images, stars collapsing, ships burning, worlds turning to dust. He was inside the Guardian's memory. A voice echoed across the void. "Welcome, Elias Trent. You seek the truth. Then see it." The lights around him formed a vast battlefield. Giant machines, thousands of Guardians, clashed with black shifting creatures that looked like living shadows. Above them, in the sky, a radiant figure of light commanded the Guardians, the architect. Elias watched as the war unfolded. Entire planets burned. The shadows consumed everything in their path. The architect raised its hands, creating barriers of light around certain worlds. One of them looked familiar. Blue oceans. "Green lands, Earth," the voice spoke again. The devourers rose from the dark between galaxies. They consumed all life, all energy. "The architects created new worlds to rebuild what was lost," Elias whispered. "They created us." "Yes," the Guardian replied. "You were made in their image, but free to choose." The architects hoped humanity would evolve, become their legacy. But when the Devourers found your world, they sealed it behind the barrier. They hid you. Elias watched as the image of Earth was wrapped in light, cut off from the stars. The Guardians were left behind to protect the seal, the voice continued. But the command was broken when the war ended. The architects vanished. We waited for the recall. The scenes shifted. Elias saw time passing, dust storms, silence, the Guardians falling asleep one by one across Mars. Then he saw himself, kneeling beside the same Guardian he had just touched. You rebuilt what should have remained buried, said the voice. The recall has begun. Elias looked around in disbelief. Then why show me this? Why tell me all this if everything is already doomed? Because the command that binds us is broken. The void darkened. The Guardian's voice grew softer, almost human. The architects are gone. The Devourers are coming. The Guardians have no master to follow. Only you, Elias Trent, he shook his head. I'm not your master, but you are the key. Your DNA carries their code, the same sequence that awakens us. You can command the network. You can end the recall, or lead it, Elias's voice trembled. And if I do nothing? Then Mars will burn, and Earth will be next. The light began to fade. Lena's voice echoed faintly through the void, calling his name. Elias turned one last time toward the image of the architect, glowing bright. Looking down at him, he spoke softly. What were you really fighting for? The figure of light turned, its voice distant and ancient. Not survival, perfection. Humanity was our second chance. Then the memory shattered like glass. Elias gasped, falling to the ground inside the base. The glow around him faded, leaving only the cold hum of machines. Lena ran to him, holding his shoulders. What happened? What did you see? She asked. He stared at her with wide eyes. Everything. The Guardians aren't soldiers. They're watchers. And I'm part of their design. Before Lena could speak, the base shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The Guardian's eyes burned brighter than ever. Elias, she screamed. Something's rising outside. He stumbled to his feet and ran to the window. The ground was splitting open. From beneath the sand, a massive shape began to rise. Another Guardian, taller, sharper, glowing red instead of blue. The first Guardian turned its head slowly toward it, the sound of metal grinding echoing across the desert. Elias whispered, "That's not one of yours, is it?" The blue Guardian's voice rumbled through the air. "No, that one still follows the old command." The red Guardian raised its arm, and the sky turned dark. "Then it begins," said the blue Guardian. "The Devourers are not the only enemy. The architects built their own monsters." The horizon lit up with fire as the two titans faced each other in the storm, and in that moment, Elias understood. The command was broken. Now he would have to choose which side to save. The red Guardian stood like a giant shadow against the burning sky, its armor cracked and glowing like molten glass. Every step it took sent tremors through the desert floor. Elias and Lena stumbled out of the base as the ground split open. The blue Guardian, the one Elias had rebuilt, turned to face its enemy, its chest core pulsing bright and fast, like a warning. "Stay behind me," the blue Guardian said, its deep metallic voice echoing through the storm. Lena's eyes widened. "It's speaking again." Elias took a breath. "It's not just speaking. It's remembering." The red Guardian stopped a few hundred meters away. Its voice was low, sharp, and filled with rage. "You broke the command. You awoke what must remain sealed." The blue Guardian's voice replied calmly, "The architects are gone. There is no command anymore." The red one raised its massive arm, and the ground between them exploded in a flash of red energy. Elias grabbed Lena's arm, pulling her behind a fallen metal wall. The sound was deafening, like thunder trapped inside stone. "Elias!" Lena shouted over the roar. "We can't stay here. We'll be crushed." Elias shook his head. "We can't run. If it wins, Earth's barrier will fall." Lena looked at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" He turned to her, eyes glowing faintly blue now. "The Guardian showed me. The red one wants to restore the old command. It'll send the recall signal. Every Guardian across the galaxy will wake up. Earth won't survive that. Lena stared at him. Then what can we do? Elias looked at the Blue Guardian, standing tall, ready to fight again. I think it wants me to help it. The Blue Guardian knelt down, the light from its eyes dimming slightly as if in pain. Elias Trent, it said, my strength is fading. The battle is not only of metal, it is of mind. You carry the Architect's code. Together, we can restore balance. Elias hesitated. You want me to merge with you? Yes, your heart will guide what logic cannot. But once joined, we cannot be separated. Lena stepped forward. No, Elias, you don't know what it'll do to you. He looked at her, calm but resolute. If I don't, billions could die. I can't let that happen. The Guardian extended its hand. A field of blue light formed between them, swirling like a storm of stars. Elias slowly placed his hand into the light. His body lifted from the ground, pulled upward in a burst of energy. Lena screamed his name, but her voice vanished in the storm of light. Inside the fusion, Elias saw everything again, but clearer. The machine's thoughts, the fragments of the Architect's memories, the patterns of their creation. He could feel the Guardian's mind beside his own, vast and ancient, but strangely gentle. We are one, said the voice. Their vision merged. The battlefield below appeared like a living map, red and blue energy colliding in waves. The Red Guardian turned its gaze toward them, its voice a roar of fury. Traitor! You side with the frail ones? Elias, now inside the Blue Guardian's consciousness, replied, his voice mixed with the machine's deep tone. I side with life. He raised his arm, and a spear of blue light burst from his palm, meeting the Red Guardian's energy blast mid-air. The collision tore the clouds apart, revealing the stars above. The Red Guardian lunged forward, its claws slicing through the air. Elias blocked with his forearm, sparks flying like rain. Each impact shook the desert, carving trenches in the sand. Lena watched from below, shielding her face from the shockwaves. She whispered, Come on, Elias. You can do this. The battle grew brutal. The Red Guardian pinned the blue one down, pressing its blade through its shoulder. Circuits hissed and cracked. You cannot change the will of the Architects, the Red Guardian growled. Elias, breathing hard inside the fusion, gritted his teeth. Maybe not. But I can choose my own. He reached deeper into the Guardian's core, to the Architect's code. The power inside him burned bright, flowing through every circuit. He screamed, and a surge of blue energy exploded outward, throwing the Red Guardian back. The blast lit the sky for miles. The Red Guardian stumbled, half its body shattered, but its eyes still glowed red. You will destroy us all. It hissed and fell backward into the crack it had opened. The sand swallowed it whole. Silence fell. The sky cleared. The stars returned. Elias collapsed to his knees inside the Guardian, exhausted. The blue light flickered weakly. You have done what we could not, the Guardian whispered. You chose your path. Elias smiled faintly. And now you must carry the signal. The Blue Guardian's core brightened, forming a glowing sphere in its hands. It pulsed with rhythmic energy, a message traveling across space. Lena ran toward them. Elias, what's happening? The ground trembled again, but this time not from destruction. All around the desert, blue lights began to rise from beneath the sand. One by one, dormant Guardians awoke, their eyes glowing like stars. Lena covered her mouth in awe. Oh my God! Above them, the sky filled with thousands of blue lights ascending into the atmosphere. Elias's voice echoed, calm and strong. The Architects built Guardians to obey, but humans were born to choose. I choose to defend. The Blue Guardian turned its gaze toward Earth, its eyes filled with light. The recall begins, but this time, it's ours. The stars shimmered, and a soft, deep hum spread through the void, the sound of countless Guardians awakening across the galaxy. The Martian night was calm for the first time in centuries. The sand glowed softly beneath the thousands of newly awakened Guardians, their blue eyes lighting up the desert like a sea of stars. Lena stood in silence, staring at the horizon. The storm clouds had cleared. The air was thin but peaceful. She whispered, "It's over." But deep inside her heart, she knew it wasn't. The battle had ended, but something much greater was about to begin. Inside the Blue Guardian, Elias Trent floated in a field of light. His human body was still there, but his mind stretched across the stars. He could hear signals, whispers, and voices from the other Guardians waking up on distant worlds. "We hear your call," one voice said. "Awaiting your direction," said another. Elias didn't feel like a man anymore, not a god either, but something in between. A bridge between humanity and the machines that once guarded the stars. Lichter's voice echoed through his comms. "Elias, can you hear me?" He smiled faintly. "Yes, I'm still here." "Then what happens now?" she asked. Elias looked up at the glowing night sky. "We wait, they're coming." Hours passed. The Guardians stood motionless, facing the sky, their light pulsing in rhythm like one vast heart. Then the stars began to shift. Not twinkling, moving. A new light appeared, brighter than anything Lena had ever seen. It wasn't a planet or a ship. It was something alive, vast and radiant, like a sun taking shape before their eyes. Lena stepped back. "Elias, what is that?" He answered softly, his voice full of awe. "The architects." The sky tore open like glass breaking, and from the rift emerged colossal figures made of light, taller than mountains. Their forms ever-changing, their faces hidden behind waves of energy. Every Guardian bowed instantly, lowering their heads in perfect silence. One of the glowing beings spoke, its voice echoing across the entire planet. "Who calls the broken legion to rise?" Elias stepped forward inside the Blue Guardian, his light pulsing. "I did." The being's gaze shifted toward him. "You are human. You are not of us." "I know," Elias said. "But your creations were dying. Your command was broken." "I made a choice to protect." The air trembled with the architect's response. "You carry our code. You are half of what we were. Why defend those who replaced us?" Elias took a breath. "Because they're not your replacements. They're your legacy. You didn't fail. You created life that could choose." There was silence for a long time, a silence that felt like the whole universe was listening. Then, the central architect moved closer, lowering its light until it almost touched Elias's guardian. "You disobeyed the recall. You altered the ancient design." Elias looked up. "Maybe the design needed to change." Lena held her breath, watching from below. The tension in the air was heavy. One wrong word, and everything could vanish. The architect's light flickered, shifting from gold to blue. "We built Guardians to obey, but you question," Elias smiled faintly. "That's what makes us human." The architect's form rippled, and a soft hum filled the air. Across the planet, every Guardian lifted its head. "Then humanity has done what we could not," the voice said. "You have learned to guide without control." The light spread across the desert, touching every Guardian. The red cracks in the ground began to heal, the old scars fading away. Lena's eyes filled with tears. "Elias, what are they doing?" He looked toward her. "They're passing the torch." The architects' bodies began to dissolve into streams of light, merging with the Guardians across the galaxy. "We return to the stars," the voice said softly. "The age of the architects is over. The age of the Guardians and of humanity begins." The sky shimmered one last time, and then they were gone, leaving behind only silence and starlight. The Blue Guardian's glow dimmed gently as Elias stepped out, his body weak but alive. He looked human again, though his eyes still carried a faint blue shimmer. Lena ran to him, throwing her arms around him. "You did it. It's really over." Elias nodded slowly. "No, it's just beginning. The Guardians aren't weapons anymore. They're protectors, just like us." He looked toward the horizon where dawn was breaking, the first sunlight touching the Martian sands. "Maybe one day," he said softly, "Earth will know what really happened here. Maybe they'll understand we were never alone." Lena smiled. "And what about you?" Elias looked at the stars, a hint of wonder in his eyes. "I think I'll keep listening. Someone has to make sure the architect's promise isn't forgotten." The Guardians around them began to move, slowly rising into the sky, hundreds of them, forming a spiral of light that stretched into space. Lena whispered. "They're leaving," Ilias smiled. "No, they're going home." As the last Guardian vanished beyond the clouds, the desert fell silent again. Only two humans stood beneath the rising sun, watching the sky that once burned with war, now glowing with peace. And in the silence, a faint voice echoed through the wind. "The Guardians stand. Humanity endures.